Fancy seeing you here again.
Good morning. I feel like I slept here.
It's like 10 o'clock.
Hey, why'd you put a shock collar on me right out of the gate? What's this thing for? Check my diabetes?
So everybody can hear you. So.
I just got shocked.
All right.
I haven't been here in a while.
So here's the deal, Mr. Trucker Track. Mr. Dirt Perfect has been shopping for a new dozer online.
All right, I love that. That's great.
And
Let's buy something.
Are you paying?
No, it's why I like buying stuff with your money.
So I've come to realize from studying pictures that I've gained some knowledge over the years of evaluating an undercarriage through pictures.
Knowledge of what?
Of undercarriages.
Oh, okay.
You can learn a lot through pictures.
You can.
Because every undercarriage on the internet is 60%.
They're all perfect. One owner, old lady used.
Yeah. So me and Todd are going to sit down. We're going to go through some pictures I compiled through my dozer shopping experience and kind of give you guys some pointers on what to look for when shopping on the internet. All right, Mr. Self-proclaimed undercarriage expert. Is that what we're
I think it's self-proclaimed. I've been to school for undercarriage. Where you been to school?
You've been to school.
Why is there a kid's blanket on the
That's
transfer?
irrelevant to this conversation.
Okay.
Focus.
I'm sorry.
Focus.
Positive.
All right. So here's our first picture, Mr. Todd from Trucker Track. What do you? There's a couple things that I noticed right off the bat. What do you notice?
I'll tell you what. Let's go with Dirt Perfect. It's your place. You go first. What do you see there?
All right. So I noticed a couple things here. The first thing I noticed is the worn bolt heads, mostly on the back side of the pad.
Yeah.
I noticed the grouser extensions that have been welded on, which I've never found those to be cost effective. I always found it to be better just to replace the rails. And then I noticed the upper roller, the flange is missing and it is rolled over.
Yeah. And you nailed everything. Why are we getting these weird comments coming?
Just ignore it.
There's a lot going on. Okay.
Some people are popular on YouTube. Maybe one day you'll.
I know. I'm working on it. I like seeing the messages. It's waking me up. It's like somebody's watching me.
Maybe one day you'll understand.
Thank you. Anyway, so you're right. There is a weird wear pattern, though. If you'll notice how the bolt heads in the back are worn, the way they did the grouser bar, it is a little weird because the way the grouser bar is worn, usually on a grouser bar, you get to the bolt head.
Right.
And then you weld it on. That's a little bit high. So I don't know if he was in an area where he needed more traction. Maybe he was pulling a plow or something, because to get that weird wear pattern, he's been tracked, some hard traction.
So the grouser extensions are obviously cheaper than a grouser, but there's a lot of welding involved.
The grouser extensions for a hoe 650 John Deere's $500, and then you got all the labor going in there to weld them on.
Yeah.
It's not cost effective at all. The problem too is you weld the grouser bar on, they call it flowering, is where the pads start to bend over on the sides, like the flower. And then once they start to flower, they get into your machine. You're like, no, it won't, but it will get into the file drive or anything. But you're right. So top roller's totally shot. It's burnt out. I can't believe the guy put the picture on there like that, but whatever. But he's got a top roller totally shot.
Zoomed in on something he was trying to take a picture of.
Yeah, he's trying to get way back.
And that's another good point to bring up is whatever's in the center of the picture, you need to look left, right, up, or down, because that's where you'll find the good stuff out.
He's trying to hide something there. Or you zoomed in, but he was trying to hide something. But anyway, yeah. So he has definitely got some issues. Let's be honest. If he's going to let his top roller go that bad and he's going to let his grouser bar, there's a lot more problems.
Gotcha.
Okay, if you can pick out two things that quick, that's a pretty problem.
All right, on to the next one. You ready?
Go.
This one here is underneath of a rail. I don't think this is the same dozer. I think this is a different dozer. Now, there's a couple things I noticed right off the bat. One, if you can see the cupping in the upper roller down here, I wouldn't call that wore out, but it's definitely got some wear on it. But the big thing is right here in the center of the screen, the bushing is completely wore through. You can see it in that crack right there.
Yeah, the bushings are 110% wore out.
This track is not 5% life left. This track is 0%.
It's zero. Yeah, it is. And I do like how they've painted. See how they painted a bunch of stuff? Anyway, they tried to put lipstick on a pig. So they've gone in there, they've painted it to make it look good, but when you look underneath the undercarriage, it's definitely worn out. There is no turning that. There's no fixing that at all.
That's a replacement.
You can't repin and bushing it for the amount of money you can buy. You can buy a set of rails for that and be done with it and move on down the road.
So I mean that's not 60%. That's shot.
No, that's shot. That's shot.
All right, so here's our next one. This is also on a rail. This is a different machine. This is actually an 850 dozer I was looking at in Kentucky. It was advertised as 65% bottom.
Sweet.
And this one here, you can see here, and you can also see up here on the other one, that rail is done.
That rail is done. You need a tetanus shot first. Then once you get past your tetanus, then you go in and
I'm
that thing's shot.
assuming the rail was the 40% that was no good, and the sprockets and the idlers and the rollers were the 65% that was.
Let's be honest, things wear pretty close to the same.
Yeah.
So if the bushing is wore that much, then we know that the rest of everything is wore equally. It does pretty good. If you ever see something that's not wore equally, then there's something wrong with the machine. EQ bar's out, the pivot shaft's out, something weird's going on.
Now, here's an interesting, I don't have a picture of it, but an interesting part about the machine that has this rail on it is it also has Grouser extensions mounted on it.
There's a lot going on there.
I don't know what's going on with that.
But people do a lot of tiling down in Kentucky and do drainage, and they'll put those Grouser bars on there. But anyways,
yeah, that's again advertised as 60. I think it was advertised as 65%. That rail is 100% shot.
I'm sure his mom ran it.
And keep in mind, guys, I haven't seen any of these machines in person. These are just pictures I pulled off the internet and stuff I've learned over the years.
Well, we love internet specials at the shop. Because they're always like, it looks so good on the internet, and then when
I've proclaimed this before. You know, I'm a big advocate of buying stuff sight unseen, but you got to know what to look for in pictures and understand what you got.
Yeah.
And you make your money when you buy the machine, not when you sell it. So,
right.
All right, on to the next one. And what we got here? So this here is a rail I found on a machine I was looking at, and Todd, I'm having a hard time. I noticed a few things. You can see the idler there, or the roller. It looks pretty flat across the top. The bushing looks pretty good. The rail lands. I mean, I don't see no issues with this one.
So one thing,
that's a 95% rail.
One thing else, you're right. I'll go with you on that.
What?
It is.
Say
but
it again.
let's correct a few things.
Okay.
A front idler is a front idler.
That's not a front idler.
A top roller is a top roller. A ground roller is a ground roller.
No, is that what they call them by the names they call them?
You said, if you get off on the terminology, which you did, I'm not going to correct you, I'm just saying. If you get off on the terminology, it makes it hard for us to identify. It's like a differential. Somebody calls it a rear end, a pumpkin head, or whatever. If we get all on the same page on what it's called, then we do a lot better. But top roller, front idler, bottom roller, rear sprockets, which sprockets are pretty self-explanatory. But and back to this. Looks good. Fantastic.
This is actually on an older machine. This is like a 90s model machine. This particular picture here, I believe it was a Cat 6 D6D.
Yeah.
But
the only thing that could get you right there by that picture, and you're going to have more pictures, but is how much wear is inside the chain itself.
Right,
you can't see that.
Right.
There's two ways to see that. How far is the front idler jacked out? And if you stand over the back sprocket,
and if you can rock it,
then she's wore out on the inside.
But this picture here gives me encouragement that this undercarriage has either been replaced or it still has some life left in it. I mean, I don't know, 95% may be a little bit much on it, but it's a good 75 plus.
Yeah, it's good. It looks good.
So, all right. So this machine here, one thing I want to point out is you see a shiny spot right there on that pin boss. I know that to me tells me that you probably got some bottom rollers that are getting wore pretty deep because the flange of the roller is actually catching that pin boss, correct?
Yes. So the pin, pin boss, very good terminology.
I'm learning.
I'm going to get you a certificate. Anyway, so
you guys heard it.
Get you something for the wall. Anyway, so the pin boss has gotten low enough so the roller keeps going up, and you're getting down in there, and boom, you've hit the pin boss. So in the old days, in the winter, the old guys would go in the shop and they'd take a torch and they'd cut the flanges down.
We did that last week.
In the old days, and you would see people do it all the time. It was common. You'd have two guys in there. One guy's in there spinning the roller a little bit, and the guy's torched it off. Now, is it going to really hurt anything?
Well, that's my question. So if I was buying this machine, I'd probably be budgeting for some rollers and some undercarriage parts.
Yeah.
If I own this machine and I'm running it, I'm hammered down.
Well, I'm a big guy on run it until it just comes apart.
Because this is really not hurting. As long as the bearings are still in the roller, this is not really hurting anything. It's just showing a wear mark. But it is a good way to gauge from a picture.
If you're super picky and you're on hard compact, you will feel it through the dozer. You'll feel it a little bit through there.
But this is another one of those pictures to where they were trying to show something else, and I was able to zoom in on that.
Yeah.
So that tells you something about that undercarriage they're not even wanting to show you.
And I know you're not this picky, but if you're running GPS, and you're doing a runway or you're doing like the hard pack over at the dam that time, they don't want that. They don't want any clicking. It has to stay pretty smooth.
Pretty smooth.
Yeah, that will not be smooth.
Don't worry, for what we do, we're in good shape.
Perfect.
So this is a little bit better picture of that. This kind of shows that roller flange there. This bottom roller here seems to be in pretty good shape. It's the roller's not in the background. You can see where the roller's kind of lined up with the pin boss there. It's hard to see in this particular picture, but this depth right here is what you're talking about. That
yes,
is wearing.
You're seeing the wear in there. I do see something else. If you don't mind me touching your fantastic hair, perfect.
Fine.
See how that's starting to get a cup in it? Mm-hmm. Okay, I know you don't think about it, but that chain actually hits the same pretty dang spot every time. You don't get out every day and adjust your track adjusters, do you? You look at them, but you don't do it every day. There's going to be a really good run where you're not even going to think about it, and it's going to run, let's say for a year, you're not going to do anything. You're just going to run. So it has hit in that same spot every time, and it's starting to get through the hardened part. It's only hardened this much. Okay, that track chain. You can't.
And we'll
harden
talk
the whole
about
track
that a
chain.
little bit more.
We'll talk about that, but you can see that in there, and you're right. You can see that the flanges where everything's starting to wear and dip down and dig in. Yes,
Gotcha.
And that's a single flange roller.
Yes, because this is to be the outer flange, and there is no inner flange.
Right. Loggers and people like that, they love to run a double, but you can't run a double in the back on a John Deere. The sprocket will contact it. Yeah, it won't do it when it's sitting in the shop. I swear to God, it looks awesome. And then as soon as you go out, you'll feel it lock up or hit.
So basically, the takeaway from this: bottom rollers look good. Rail is showing some age.
Yep.
All right, and the next one. Let's see what we got here on our next picture. So this dozer here, this picture here kind of shows you how much the rail is possibly wore internally. Correct?
Yeah, you're starting to push out on your track adjuster pretty far.
And whenever you say push out on the track adjuster, this block right here should be centered back here, and it's pretty close to the outer edge right up here.
That's the easiest way. You can actually, from the cab of your truck, you can look at a machine and not even get out and see that. Now, the only way that's going to get pushed back is if they short link it.
Now, I want to put one little thing in there. This is a dry rail machine. Now, if it's a wet rail machine, that's not quite as telling as because you could have some pretty wore bushings on a wet rail machine and not have your idler out as far.
When it got boiled down to it back in the day, when I did track adjuster track inspections all the time, the front idler is your biggest telltale.
Yeah,
it is. I mean, that's either way, either wet or dry. Once you lose one wet one, you get a hot joint. Okay, I know Cat likes the word hot joint on bigger machines. Let's remember one thing about a high track Cat. There is no track adjustment. It's like 5.25 inches.
Yeah.
John Deere, you can jack that thing to China. It's got a ton, and you can put blocks in there. There's all kinds of crazy things you can do. So looking at the front idler, on any machine, high track, low track, standard, excavator, looking at that front idler, that's going to tell how that undercarriage is wearing. Now, if you go to it and you look at it, it's way back, they've short linked it. You can short link a high track. People can do things, but the front idler is the easiest way to tell how the undercarriage is wearing.
Let's face the fact, the short link's a Band-Aid.
It is, and it's horrible too. Once the short link pops back off the track, it's horrible to get back on because it's so short.
So short. All right, on to our next one here. So this here is the sprocket. Now, you know a whole lot more about this. One thing I noticed from this picture that gives me a little bit of concern maybe is how far up on the tooth it's wearing. That tells me the rail may be stretched a little bit and the distance between the bushings is gaining. What's your expert opinion on that?
There's a couple things that bother me about this picture. So let's say this guy sent me the picture.
This kind of bothers me because this picture here is actually my dozer.
Might have to have a drink on this one, folks. Let's say you were selling it and you sent me that picture. Number one, I would never send somebody a picture with it not dug out.
Oh God! Come on, Jerry.
Come on! It's not even. You haven't cleaned up nothing. What are you doing?
I couldn't find this picture on the internet.
What are you doing?
Those are just down the road.
Dig it out. You got to
dug it out enough to get the picture. Be happy.
Exactly. So anyway, we know it's impacted, which is on the inspection sheets. If you'll look down at the bottom, it asks if the machine's impacted, and you're definitely impacted. Second thing is that is not so much wear. It's high speed forward and reverse. So you're going at a high rate of speed forward, and you're on the phone and shooting one of your videos and waving to people like you're in a parade. I know how you go, hey, what's up, how are you? And you're throwing it in reverse and you're going back. So it's constantly like a sharpening stone,
just going
back and forth in these motions. If you just keep going forward and you think about what you're doing a little bit, you keep going forward, even turning, you're not going to get that kind of wear. You're really going forward and reverse, and you're just sharpening it up. We see that a lot with road builders and people that do long pushes. Not so much long pushes, but go somewhere and they're going back and forth and back and forth.
A lot of fine grade.
Yeah, a lot of fine grade stuff. Yeah.
So basically, you're trying to tell me this picture tells you more about the operator than the condition of the undercarriage.
If you're really good at inspecting a dozer and you don't know, so I go to I don't know you, I go to your site, I can tell you if you're left-handed or right-handed. Because a right-handed guy goes to the right all the time. A left-handed guy goes to the left all the time. And it'll wear that side of the machine out.
Me and Logger Wade have had this conversation a bunch about Phil, because Phil will wear out the right side undercarriage 2-to-1 than his left.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. You can tell if they're left-handed or right-handed. The reason we know a lot about going back and forth. So Walsh was building the Lloyd Expressway.
So Walsh is they're a huge. For people who don't know, they're a huge contractor.
Huge contractor. They are a national account for most people. They have run everything, Cat, Deere, Komatsu, everything. So we go to the Walsh job site and they're having trouble keeping sprockets on machines. We go there and we're like, I don't understand why you're going through sprockets so fast. Nobody else is going through sprockets. So we get there and they're on the Lloyd Expressway in Evansville, which is a pretty big highway. And they're going full speed forward and full speed back, and the blade's this far off the ground. And I say to the supervisor, I'm like, why are you not doing anything? He goes, look, does it look like we're doing something? I was like, man, it looks like from the bypass, it looks like you're kicking ass. He goes, exactly. When the city drives by, it looks like we're doing something. So all they were
doing something. They're wearing out sprockets.
All they were doing was burning up sprockets and fuel. That was the only two things. But I think at that time they were getting paid to be working. They had to show something. But it did teach us about high speed forward and reverse, because the way that wear pattern looks just like it was like a fast motion. It got us ahead fast. That makes sense. Instead of us figuring it out over the years, it really got
accelerated in that.
Yes, because of that. And then you can also see the side wear of that. Now, just speaking about side wear, so every once in a while you put on a new undercarriage, you will hear it pop. You'll hear what that is years ago, sprockets were they weren't cast, they were more forged. Okay, so a sprocket was smoother. Sand casting is grittier. It will grab as it's going over. It grabs the rail, pulls it down with it. You can't see it. You're dry. You're in the dozer. You're drinking a Pepsi.
I've discussed this with you because I've had some issues on my 120 with that after we put the
It will yank the front idler back. It'll pull that spring back. That spring is under a massive amount of tension, and then it'll let go and boom. And then what it is that sand casting is grabbing the inside of that rail. It pulls it down a little and then lets it go. And that's the popping noise you're having.
Yeah, that's exactly what the 120 did for a while. It did it for about 100 hours.
Yeah, it'll calm down.
And then it's pretty much.
If you want to go in there with a grinder and smooth all that back out, you can. But anyway.
It kind of works out in.
But anyway, it's got a lot of forward and back wear.
All right, so this one here is an older dozer. And a couple things I noticed here on this one. One, obviously the grousers are getting pretty wore. But the thing that I really want to pick up on is how thin the rail is. And whenever I say how thin the rail is, I'm talking about this bottom edge right here. This is what you were kind of talking about in some previous pictures about they have wore through the hardness of that rail.
A rail is only heat treated about this thick. Okay, why don't they do the whole thing? It's expensive.
Yeah, it's money.
It's expensive. When you see them make a rail, they heat them, red hot, and they quench them right about this much. So once you get past that, it's like getting into butter. You're going from like a hard piece of steel to butter. I mean, it'll go right through it. So that's somebody has, and by the way, whoever ran it did a really good job. That's pretty consistent and even across the bottom. So you had an operator that was going,
So long story short, they maximized their life out of this rail, but this rail is pretty much shot.
Yeah, and the sprockets, they call it skipping. Those are getting so pointy that they'll finally get it in a haul, and the sprocket will break off and it'll skip. And that's hard on the finals when they start skipping. But it's wore out, but it was wore evenly. Somebody did a pretty good job of getting their life out of it.
I'm going to skip forward to this picture here. So this here is an odor dozer, and we got a lot of people out there that buy some odor equipment. And this is something you probably won't deal with modern equipment, but older equipment that's been sitting for a while, it's something you really need to be aware of. And right here in the center of the screen, you can see this rail's got a kink in it, and that's what I would call a stuck link.
We call it, stuck or frozen. We used to break those loose. So there's a couple things that have happened here. Either it was a dry rail or it was a lubricator rail that the oil has gotten out of. Whatever it matters is that the pin and the bushing are now rust welded together. We used to push those apart. We blew some stuff up, so we stopped doing it. So we would go in there with a torch and cut those two pieces out and put a repair link in there. Next problem, okay, this machine's from the 70s. And you come in the shop, they don't make rails like they did in the 70s, so getting parts for it's going to be kind of tough. You're better off to go ahead and buy a set of dry rails. I know that I don't like selling dry rails. Remember, if you buy a dry rail, if you don't run it constantly, it will freeze up.
Which is probably what happened here.
But you're never going to get that out. You can take a bunch of diesel fuel and put diesel fuel on it and soak it and soak it and soak it and try to break it out, but more than likely you're not going to get that out.
So long story short, even though this rail looks perfectly fine as far as wear and everything else, with that link being stuck, that one, and one thing you got to be aware of too, and this picture don't do a good job of showing it, a lot of times where they're stuck at is out on the sprocket and the idler, and you won't know that until you track the machine forward or backwards.
You're right. And when you take those rails off, you can put the pads on the right direction. Because they're backwards.
We'll get to that.
Okay, keep going.
So this is a shot from underneath the dozer, and a couple things from this. One thing I want to talk about on this is that front block we're talking about that holds the idler, and one, we can see it slid pretty far back, so that gives us an indication the rail's probably still got some life left in it if nobody short linked it. How important is it to have that shim tight with no movement? What's the?
Go ahead, smart guy. You're gonna complain about it. Go ahead.
No, I'm gonna let you. No, I'm gonna let you say your piece.
Go ahead. You're smart enough about it.
Well, I'm gonna let you say your piece, and then I'm gonna argue with you.
All right. So I did go to school on this. John Deere had at the school.
You went to school. Where did you go to school?
The John Deere school on undercarriage.
Okay.
What's wrong with that?
Because it's the manufacturer and they want to sell stuff.
I was drinking the Kool-Aid.
I know, that's my point.
They had me put the robe on. It was awesome. I went around and chanted. It was great. It was a whole cult thing going on. But anyway, I went to John Deere school in Moline.
You tell us the corporate side of it. I'm going to tell you the reality of the job site.
They actually did a really good job. They had the track chain off, so it was all laid out. They had the dozer sitting there. They had a dozer and an excavator. In both instances, on the part you're talking about, slip fit. Mm-hmm. So you should be able to put both your feet in the front with it disconnected from the track adjuster rod or the spring, and you should be able to slide that idler front to back.
I do have some videos.
I wasn't done.
I know. I just want to say, if anyone wants to see how that works, I do have some videos on my channel. Track adjuster C on the D4G. They can see how that slides in and out. Go ahead. Finish now.
You done?
I'm done.
I was on a roll.
I know you're
on
a roll.
Rolling right there. Anyway,
you just sail away in your boat, and I'm going to sink it here in a minute.
So I knew that was coming. See, that's why I wanted you to start first.
No.
Okay, here we go. So you go front to back. There should be no up and down play. There should be no side to side. And really, you shouldn't be able to cock it side to side, because remember, you want the idler to be in there by itself, stayed centered and moving properly. You don't want any up and down side to side play. You don't want any pulsing. Now remember, on a case, the old cases, they had springs in them. Mm-hmm. They do have a little bit of pulse, but not that bad. So slip fit, forward to back, slip fit. All right, go ahead.
So I agree with the majority of that. Okay. The most important thing with that idler is it cannot catch on anything. It needs to be able to slide in and out of that rail freely.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, as far as up and down movement, it can't have excessive movement. A little bit of movement's not going to hurt a darn thing. And you're talking about putting this vibration through the track adjuster and the spring and all this stuff. I'd much rather put that vibration through the track adjuster and the spring than my whole dang machine.
Keep going.
Side to side movement. Where's it going to go? It can't come out of there.
Let's talk about the weakest link in this is the seal.
I thought you were going to say the operator.
I'm standing here with you.
Okay, the seal.
Anyway.
I agree. The seal is probably the weakest link.
So if the seal is in there and the rod's in there and everything's moving up and down, you can't tell me that it's not going to push the seal out eventually.
I'm calling BS, because you know what ruins most seals? impaction because they get dirt around
Oh,
there.
like the picture you showed me where your sprocket was packed?
They get dirt around there. The
Nice.
rod gets pitted.
Yeah.
You suck the track back for some reason, and it rips the seal. You're quiet because you know I'm right.
No. Let me ask you a question. Let's say your wheel bearing's going out on your truck. Okay. And is the wheel bearing supposed to be centered and stay? Your wheel's supposed to be turning pretty
Well,
much?
last I checked, Dozers don't have rubber tires. So.
No. Answer my question. Do you want the wheel to turn?
But
Do you
you're
want the wheel
comparing a
to turn?
boat to a submarine.
Do you want the wheel to turn?
We're
centered?
not racing on the same
Do you,
track here.
do you want the wheel to turn? Do you want?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. The same motion. If you can keep everything centered and tight, you're going to get 10 times the amount of wear out of everything, and that's the end game. What's the most war thing on? I'm not even going to talk.
I will give you credit that the tighter it's shimmed and the more alignment it is, the better it is. But
Everything will wear more because the undercarriage is there's two things. Well, they always say you gotta die and pay taxes. You know, that's an old school saying. On a dozer or excavator, you're going to buy GET. You're going to buy teeth and cutting edges, whichever one, and you're going to buy undercarriage. So if you can keep either one of those two things tight and together, the longer it's going to be the long run. You're going to get more money out of it.
This is hard to judge from a picture. I can tell from this one by zooming in on it, it's not too bad because usually this piece right here will get wore at a funky angle. It does look like it's lifted up off there a little bit. I can't tell. There's you can see back here. There's a wear plate in there.
You know, on the older John Deere's, it's super easy on a 450, 550, 650. At 700, I believe, but when you get them, the bigger ones, not so much. But it's all you got to do is take the side plate off. You can put shims in there.
Yeah.
It's not that big a deal. I mean, it's not like it's the end of the world. But
The cats are a little more difficult because they got that J hook that runs inside the rail.
I can't tell you how many people have come in and like, well, my front idler's not out, but it's sitting there hopping like this. Well, it's beat everything up in there. You have screwed up your track frame because you.
Which again, we have several videos on repairing this particular issue on the 120 rebuild.
Well, I thought you didn't have any problems with that.
Now, wait a minute. If I was putting new undercarriage on a machine, I would make sure that is shimmed properly. But like my D4G right now, it's got some play in it. I'm not taking the track apart to reshim.
Well, let me ask you a question. If you were in the Army and you had a tank, you would take care of the gun because that's pretty much what you need, right?
The front
Don't
idlers.
you got to take care of the undercarriage because that's got to get you to where you got to go. I'm right.
All right, we're gonna agree to disagree on
Let's
this.
move forward.
We'll let these people comment down below and see how important that is.
I'm right.
Next picture. What we got next?
Is this thing going to zap me? Okay, let's go.
This is an older dozer here. I believe it's that same D6D. I mean, this undercarriage here, I'm having a hard time blowing holes in it. The track adjusters.
It does look good.
Track adjusters back. Rails got some decent.
Grousers look great.
Grousers are not weld-ons. They're factory.
The bolt heads look fantastic, so we know that it never got into
So
down
I mean,
the wet.
this
everything looks
undercarriage here, I would call this a good undercarriage from pictures.
good. That's good.
All right, we're gonna switch gears on you. We're gonna go to rubber tracks. You ready for this?
No.
So rubber tracks are hard. They're not like steel tracks. Like you don't have specs, you don't have anything. I'm gonna show you guys two
You're
quick.
using all my lines. What are you doing? That's my cue card. Stop reading off mine.
So
Damn.
this is a Bobcat machine. There's a couple things I noticed right off the bat by looking at this. One is how rusty the undercarriage is, which tells me this thing was probably ran in salt, most likely snow removal. But this is the track on one side.
Flash or sand.
This is the track on one side. This is the track on the other side. Obviously, they're different tracks. That's a huge red flag right off the bat.
Let's talk about something. This is our number one question on truckertrack.com. You can hit us up at info@truckertrack.com. That'll go to me, that'll go to Steve, that'll go to Joey. People hit us up all the time on small equipment mostly, and they say, hey, I've got I was trying to think of something, like a Bobcat something, or I got a Yanmar, certain model. You got to be careful on small equipment what you buy, because Komatsu, Yanmar, John Deere, not so much, Cat, not so much, but a lot of those guys will make something for 5 years and just get rid of it.
Yeah, done.
And then you'll go out there and you're like, oh man, I need a Mini. This is awesome. There's a lot of those pieces of equipment, because what happens is you buy it, you run it for 100 hours, and then the problem is you need parts for it.
Right.
And then you need a final, you need a top roller, and there's nothing available for those machines because they've made them for a few years. All undercarriages are not the same. They're getting better. They are getting better. They're more standardized. So anyway, going to this Bobcat, There is no way to gauge any of this stuff. It's mostly by the hours.
Okay.
I know that's a flip-flop.
Well,
by the way, your models don't matter in any equipment. I get tired of it. I get that all the time. I got a 1987 D5. Sir, the year doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What year truck do you have? I got a 2005. Okay, well, go with that on that. But equipment, it doesn't matter. It's the make and model and the serial number. The year model doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Stop telling me that.
Let's go. We'll get to your hour point here in a minute. Let's look at a few more pictures and we'll talk about that. So this here is another Bobcat machine. I look at this track on this thing. I noticed a few things, kind of like the steel track. The idler's out pretty far. The track's loose. I'm not saying this thing's wore out, but it's got some age on it.
So if you called me and you said, hey, I'm having, my tracks are way out, I'd ask you two questions. Is it riding super rough, and how far is the sprocket sticking out of the rubber track? And what that is if it's sticking out pretty far, it's going to ride on the sprocket. It's going to be super rough riding, and the sprocket sticking out of the track, we know that the sprocket's wore out and the rubber track's wore out. So
Gotcha.
Those are two telltales. But you're right. It's kind of like the front idler is way out. I mean, it's the same thing as a dozer on that part.
So this here is a sprocket, as you were talking about, on a skid steer. Obviously, you can see the tooth is not wore evenly.
Yeah, and it's sticking through the track. You can tell by the shine. You can tell by how it is totally.
So this is a pretty good sign that this particular undercarriage is getting wore down. This is probably 40% or less, would you say?
Right.
Now this particular machine here is advertised with new undercarriage and new bucket. I'll give them credit, they got new paint on the bucket, and I'll give them credit, they most likely got new tracks on it. But from what I can tell from this, they didn't replace the sprocket, they didn't replace the bottom rollers, they just put tracks on this thing.
Yeah. I remember being in like 1999 or 2001, being in a bid opening at City of Hopkinsville. And we had John Deere, Cat, and Bobcat there, and then they opened that, and they're like, stock of Snoochie. And I was like, what the hell is that? They're like, it's a stock of Snoochie. Is bid a piece of equipment? Did you just sneeze? Or was that a model? And Takeuchi had come out in the late 90s, early 2000s. And at first it was a huge joke, but they're actually a pretty good machine.
They're really good machines.
I think Takeuchi's got their own niche. I think Takeuchi, New Holland, Mustang, and there's a few models that are really close to each other. I'm not sure if they're not making each other's models. Just remember, in small equipment, and it's becoming more common in bigger equipment, a lot of manufacturers, kind of like MTD lawnmowers, a lot of people make a lot of other people's, they just paint them a different color. But Takeuchi's a really good machine. They've been around for a long time now. You're right, he's put new rubber tracks on it. That's called a C-lug. That's the cheapest track you can buy because they take that rubber out of that C and they reuse it. So the more rubber they could take out and reuse, the more money they save.
Really?
So it's called a C-lug.
So that not only is that, so he just basically threw new tracks on this the cheapest way he possibly could. He got the cheapest tracks.
Now, again, there's nothing wrong with the track. It's just cheaper because they don't use as much rubber.
Gotcha.
That's the only thing. It's just cheap.
This machine here, this may look familiar. This is my particular machine.
Doesn't look horrible, but it doesn't look great either. You need to wash that up a little bit.
This looks better than the other one.
It does look better than the other one.
A couple things I want to point out here is
that a split?
Well, I'm glad you pointed that out because
we got Daddy. Oh, Daddy.
So what do you think we got going on here, sir?
Well, I'm sure you treated it like an angel. You drove around at a low, high rate of speed. You have got.
Is this a good time to start negotiating some sponsorship opportunities?
Yeah, it is. It is. You're going to need them. You have. You've gotten into something sharp. The worst thing on a rubber track is a curve. If you go over something
personally
sharp,
don't think I got a hold of something sharp there. You want to know what I think happened? I think that metal cleat in there is starting to come loose and is going to come out. You arguing with me?
You went over something sharp. I don't care what you say.
Okay.
You went over something sharp. You went over something sharp, and it pushed that track between the two rollers up, and it broke it. You ever took an old piece of fence?
Yeah.
And you just kept working it back and forth, same thing. I know you were probably just doing gardening with it. I know. You probably just graded your driveway. You never ran over anything hard, a piece of wood or anything. Something that shoved that back up in between those rollers forcefully. Now, your only saving grace is your wire is in this part.
Which is in the outer part, so it's still.
Right.
So, I guess if I'm looking at this machine on the internet and I spot that crack, level of concern 1 to 10.
I'd run the hell out of it. By the way, we have a great video on how tough is you stand back a little. How tough is a rubber track? It's on our YouTube channel. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, continue. But anyway, I'm not too worried about it because the bands are on the outside.
Well, that's my point. Is we're not damaged out here because I post videos all the time. Oh my goodness, you got a crack in your track, toss it. I'm like, it's still going around in circles.
No, I'm a firm believer in reusing things. Let's talk just real quick, going back to dozers and excavators. If your front idler is still good and there's no play in the bushing, just reuse it. It's just a circle. So just like that, it's still running. I would use it and keep trucking.
So this is also on my machine here. And one thing I want to point out is where the rollers run, the rubber's kind of chunked up a little bit. I mean, I consider that to be normal wear for this track.
Normal.
I mean, there's no issues there at all, right?
Normal.
All right, Todd, this is the last picture we're going to look at here.
Are we done? I love pictures.
You would be the one to love pictures. All right, so you glance at this picture. What do you see right off the bat? What do you learn from this?
The rails, the track's on backwards.
Man, you're good.
Right out of the gate, it's backwards.
So, I mean, I look at this, and obviously they're centering up the idler here in the middle. And the rail's on backwards because the grouser pad on the dozer should be on the front, not the back.
Right, it should be the leading edge. Remember, the dozer, let's be honest, it's supposed to be pushing. Hello. So, that cleat's got to get in there and pull back.
Yeah, and as I throw up a picture of the other side of this dozer, the track is on correctly.
That's even worse. So if you're looking at buying this on the internet, because I think that's what we're talking about the most, we're talking about internet sales. Okay, I'm on here, I'm in my underwear, I got my lemonade out, I'm ready to buy, I got my credit card out, it's on fire. Okay, you've got to look for things like that. So that tells me the guy didn't know what he was doing, and he was probably in a little bit of a hurry. And the paint's pretty fresh on this puppy. So somebody's been painting some stuff up, slap a little Bondo on there.
Paint will get you in trouble. Paint will get you in trouble.
Yep.
So, all right, so in closing, we're shopping on the internet. We find this dozer we love. And one, we want to know whether parts are available.
Right.
And two, let's just say we know from the pictures it needs undercarriage. How much is undercarriage going to cost me?
Right. You can go to truckertrack.com day or night. Could you get out of the figure? You can go to truckertrack.com day.
How much are you paying me for this commercial?
Why does the camera keep moving? I got to stay centered. Does my makeup look good? So you got to go to truckertrack.com day or night. You can go on there. You click on the machine you're thinking about. There's even a picture of it.
I got a better idea. Why don't you stop talking about it and let's just look one up real quick.
Let's do it.
All right, Todd, we got your beautiful website pulled up here. So we got multiple different options: truck parts, track parts, or videos. I don't want to see any of your videos, so I'm going to go to track parts. And I want to point out that this actually works better on your phone.
It was, I know it sounds crazy, but when we went in there, the nerds were like, I had my laptop out there, like, what are you doing? I was like, I want to do it. And they're like, no, man, everything's on your phone. So yes, actually you can be doing it while using your dozer.
And I've got a video on this. I've actually ordered some undercarriage parts for the 850 while I was running it.
Yeah,
from my phone.
That's what it's built for, is for your phone. Yes.
So, all right, so we clicked on track parts, family. We're going to go to dozer. If you guys can see that, we'll go dozer. Go manufacturer. I'm going to go with Jonathan Deere. And I am currently looking at buying, man, John Deere makes a lot of dozers.
In the equipment side, there's a bit of hesitation, but you have to understand the amount of stuff that's in there, in those folders.
So I'm looking at buying an 850J.
Okay.
So there's my John Deere, there's my dozer, it's a John Deere, it's an 850J.
Simple.
I scroll down, there it is. Front idlers, $1,300, rails, $2,600, single grouser, $40.
And a few things there, those are lubricated, so there's gonna be oil, they're sealed, so it's sealed, and then it's also lubricated. So you can get just sealed, that's considered dry, but these are sealed and lubricated. There are no dry rails for this, so that option is not going to be on here. You got your pad widths, you got your sprockets, you got your hardware. Everything's spelled out pretty good for you. We're doing better on our pictures. We're adding more and more pictures to it, but the descriptions are the most important thing. So all you got to do is hit it, add it to your cart. And what we also do too, just really quickly, we went ahead and added how many of each item is on the machine, because we had a lot of questions like, how many bolts, lower bolts? There's 56. That's how many for the whole machine. If you have 2 sprockets. Lower rollers, you have 8, and those are single flange rollers. So we have all that added up for you, so you can even make it quicker. If you're doing the whole undercarriage, man, you can fly through
Now,
here.
Pretty much everything that you guys offer is on here. So let's just say hypothetically we go to, let's go to an old case dozer, and a model that I'm somewhat familiar with is the, is it even on here, the 1450? In case.
I would love to tell you that I know every model that's on there, but I haven't. I don't know.
Let's just go with an old. Whoops. Yeah, 1450.
Okay, sealed means dry, so there's
Well,
gonna be
this
dry.
dozer here is there's some stuff that's not available for it because I used to own one.
And I'll be honest with you, just by flipping, there was not very many pages that came
Right.
or very much came up. So
and one thing, is there a rail on here? Because that's one thing we couldn't get before. See, there's no rail on here.
yeah,
So that particular dozer, if you're looking for it, there's no
Right,
rail because that machine has an odd pitch. You may not know that by looking at a picture on the internet, but you can go to this website right there on your phone.
Right.
If you're in an auction, whenever I was up at Louisville at the auctions of Ritchie Brothers and I was
Right.
walking around the lot, man, I was loving this website because I was picking up all kinds of parts on there.
there's nothing worse than buying a machine and having buyer's regret and not being able to get a part for it. So that's what the website, you know, we actually just added compressors. We need to redo that picture. I don't like that picture for their compressors, but
Well, you're in charge of the website, not me.
I'm gonna
so.
the nerds handle it. They get mad at me.
All right, but real quick, guys, this is the truck side of stuff, and Todd, I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm building a truck.
You know what? Let's walk around, Lieutenant Dan. Just
Lieutenant Dan
2
needs,
minutes.
Lieutenant,
Let's take a
Lieutenant
2-minute
Dan,
walk around.
Lieutenant
2
Dan
minutes.
needs an update. It makes a great
I'm
desk.
actually feel claustrophobic with the amount of stuff, aka crap, that's in the shop. Let's go. Let's walk around. Anyway, Lieutenant Dan's looking good. Let's walk around this side where it's a little bit more visible.
I guess I'm following you, even though it's my shop.
I like that. Follow me. The wheels got the wheel caps on. Everything's looking good. You've got they've started adding the supports for the lift cylinder and everything in the front, and you can tell the hinge is already in. Now, one thing you guys are going to say is that hinge is really low, but this is a double wall frame, so they're going to lay the hinge down flat. On a single wall frame, we actually put little blocks in there for that to set down, and it doesn't ride. But they've got everything looking really good and everything laid in. We do need to talk about some lights. Hey,
So-
whoa. What happened to those wheels and that axle you took from me and you never gave me any
I'm
money?
storing it for you.
Anyway,
Like how you randomly-
I got screwed on that deal. But anyway, everything's looking really good.
So I got some ideas. I got some ideas in mind here, Todd.
Okay, go.
I want to light this thing up like a Christmas tree.
I can do that.
We want. Don't they make like some 5-in-1 lights you can get on the website?
We actually stock those now. They sell so fast. We stock about 50 of those. I mean,
Okay.
50. That's our number one seller. It does turn, brake, reverse, warning lights. Everything's built in. Marker. Everything's built in those lights, and they can all work at the same time. But reverse. When you put reverse in and the warning lights on, it'll kick the warning light off for safety.
So whenever you throw it into reverse, the strobe light will
When
go
you throw
off.
it in reverse, the strobe light kicks off because they're so bright that it's hard to see backing up if the strobe light's
Gotcha.
going. So it'll kick the strobe out.
So
Had
here's
somebody call my
here's
handle
something
and do
else
that.
I want to throw on this truck. I don't know if you even offer it or not, so I'm gonna put you on the spot. I'd love to put a backup camera on the hitch.
Son, you're talking to me. You know what would be cool on this truck? I've
Air
never done
conditioning?
it. I don't do that. Besides, I'd like to see you sweat.
No.
I get you a little fan.
I'm getting older. I'm enjoying my air conditioning.
They don't have no air on this truck?
Well, I do. I got it in a kit over there.
Oh, well, that's cool. But what we could do is do a 4-camera system.
Oh yeah?
Okay, so we could do a camera in the back, we could do a camera in the front, and do 2 on the blind spot on the side. I've always wanted to do one. We've done a 2.
I've got a driver that don't get along with mirrors real well.
I'll hook
so
you
this-
up on that.
this may work out pretty good.
Do a 4, and we won't do wireless. We'll do hardwired because it's a lot clearer.
Okay.
And you'll have night vision in that, and you'll have sound.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it'll be pretty cool. So we'll hook you up on that as well.
All right, well, we got to get back on this, Todd. I think the last video we did on this truck is thanks to you and arranging it all. We went up to Chris Steel.
Right.
And man, that factory.
Cry
tour-
Steel.
We had an argument about this on camera. It's Chris
They
Steel.
don't sell Crystal burgers.
That place was amazing.
But I don't know how you say that either. We always call it Cry Steel.
It's
We always-
Chris Steel.
Okay.
They informed me of that.
I-
Actually, if you watch the video, me and Aaron had an argument about this in the parking lot.
I
and
did
that
watch
was-
the video.
And that was the first
I
question
actually
we
had
asked.
to preview that ahead of time, but they also had to prove that ahead of time. Anyway, so I can call it whatever I want because I send them money. So I can call it whatever I want. But anyway, we'll hook you up on this. I can't wait to get Lieutenant Dan moved a little bit forward.
Yeah,
Once we all
no,
slow down.
it's. I apologize. We haven't had videos coming out, guys. It has just been go season.
It has here
It's
too.
Aaron's back to work. we've been busy on the jobs. Stuff should start slowing down here in a little bit. Aaron's coming back. We'll get back. I'm sure we'll have Todd wrapped into all kinds of stuff. Where?
Oh my God! Look at all those hoses on the front of that thing. What are you, kind of a little baby? You can't get out and detach your own buckets and stuff? Look at all that. Look at all those hoses. You know what all that is? That's something 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things that can go bad.
That is what you call a top-notch piece of equipment.
Hey, I'm not saying about the equipment. I'm just saying you got a lot of hoses, son. You trying to make up for something?
Focus on the truck, Todd. Focus on the truck.
There's a lot to look at in here. All right, we're good.
But, well, Todd, thanks for everything.
Hey, thanks for having me over. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you guys learned something.
You forgot the most important part of this whole video.
I'm good looking?
Promo code.
Oh, man. Okay, let's talk about it for 1 second. We've had to limit the promo code DIRT to 1 use.
That's why, because you guys are awesome, and you guys got into Todd's pocket, and I love every minute of it.
We actually have this scale thing on the backside, and it pegged out on the DIRT code. So we're gonna cut that back to 1 use. So one time you can go in there, hit the DIRT code, and you'll get 5% off anything you order. Now, Indy undercarriage, 3,000, 3,500 around in that area and above, free shipping. You don't have to worry about it. So hit us up, and the free shipping will actually kick in as you're clicking on stuff. It'll kick that freight right out, and we'll ship it to you. I'll ship it to your house. We'll put it right up in your wife's garage. I don't care. Whatever you want. We got it. Anyway.
One-time use, promo code DIRT. Use it wisely, guys. Todd, thanks for everything.
Hey, thanks for having me up.
Huge help for all the projects around here. And we'll catch you guys on the next one.
See ya. Now wait a second before you click over. You can go and follow us on truckertrack.com on YouTube. It's truck or track. Okay.
Would it be like that right there?
It would be right here on the old chest. And you can go anytime and look up any undercarriage, day or night, in your underwear or eating Cheetos. Boom, on the website truckertrack.com. Look it out.